Imagine your 4-year-old child has only a few hours left to live. The doctors say there's only one hope, a risky new surgery, and time is running out. One woman in California believes it took more than a medical miracle to save her son. In September 1992, in the small town of Julian, California, Dana Pettersen and her husband Bill celebrated the birth of a son. They named him Lucky.
Bill just wanted a name that was a quote-unquote happy name that people would immediately connect with.
Lucky was an instant joy to his family. Though 16 years older, half-brother Jason immediately bonded with a shy but playful youngster.
We're pretty far apart in age, which is kind of cool because, you know, I can give him a good heads up on everything he's got coming in his life.
Lucky loved helping his mom at her country store, but most days he would hang out at Calico's, the restaurant next door. He spent countless hours with his good buddy, Big Gino, father of restaurant owner Carl Focarelli.
I would watch them sometime, him and Lucky, and they would just seemingly play for hours without talking, but they would just be playing with the toys and doing things.
Happy birthday to me.
In 1997, a few months after his 4th birthday, Lucky started running a fever. At first, it seemed insignificant. His parents were told it was the flu. But a week and a half later, they realized it was something much, much worse.
My husband Bill and I were really very, alarmed because he just seemed to kind of be shrinking.
And I knew it was serious when I couldn't get Lucky to respond to me.
Dana and Bill rushed Lucky to the hospital. On the way, Lucky began slipping in and out of consciousness.
I felt at that point that he was gonna, die, that it was just imminent.
When they got to the hospital at the University of San Diego, the doctor's analysis was devastating.
He's got a complete kidney failure that we're looking at. He said we're looking at an edema where there's swelling of the brain, and he may not ever be the same even if we save him mentally. And his liver's not functioning.
It was incomprehensible, but true. Lucky was suffering from acute liver failure. The carefree 4-year-old had fallen into a coma and was fighting for his life.
I went running, screaming out of the room. At that point, I called a real good friend of mine whose husband had passed away a couple months earlier. And so she told me to pray for somebody to walk him back.
Dana prayed that if her son was indeed at heaven's gate, that someone would walk him back to her on earth. The prayer gave her enough calm to contact her other children.
I knew that I had to do something. And, I lost it and grabbed Katie. We jumped in the truck.
When Jason and Katie arrived at the hospital, they saw the heartbreaking image of their bloated, jaundiced baby brother.
I mean, this little tiny kid under just like massive tubing and machines. It's so weird, and he was really yellow and swollen.
I was whispering in his ear, "It's okay, your big brother's here. I'm gonna take care of you. Don't worry about it."
The doctors said that Lucky needed a liver transplant, and he needed it within the next 12 hours if he were to live.
You could not find a 4-year-old that was sicker than Lucky. I mean, it literally, at any moment he could have died.
If he did not have the transplant, there was no chance of survival. He had to have a transplant.
A helicopter rushed Lucky to the nearest transplant hospital, over 100 miles away in Los Angeles. Doctors at UCLA Medical Center would need a liver donor to save Lucky's life.
There was not an adult organ that was available that we could split and put part of that organ into him, which would have saved his life. There was not a pediatric organ that we could have put a whole organ in him. And we were really faced with a situation that the only way we were going to save Lucky's life was to be able to find a living donor.
So I said, okay, let's go. Let's test, myself, everybody. Let's get everybody tested as donors.
Neither of Lucky's parents were suitable matches. As a half-brother, Jason's chances of being a match were even less.
And I'm saying, BS, you're going to test me as a donor right now.
The medical staff told Jason no, but the clock was ticking on Lucky's life.
I think it had narrowed down to about 6 to 8 hours, the window where the transplant had to occur. Jason reiterated again, why couldn't I be a possible donor?
Finally, a nurse stepped up and she said, we'll take the blood now.
At last, tests were ordered. And an hour later, Jason's phone rang. Against all odds, Lucky's half-brother turned out to be the perfect match.
So we're faced with this situation. We're going to subject a healthy person to a major operation, going to remove a portion of his liver and implant that liver into a young boy who, at best, probably had a 30%, 25% chance of coming through this because his condition was so far advanced.
Jason was soon side by side with Lucky as they prepared to go under the knife.
And they're both laying, it just looked like slabs, even though it was beds. And they're both laying on these beds with tubes coming out of them. And I think that's when the enormity of everything really hit me.
Lucky flatlined twice during the whole ordeal, but was somehow revived. Finally, the medical staff gave the Pettersens some good news.
The doctor said everything was great. The transplant went as well as it could be expected on both parts.
3 days later, Lucky woke up.
Lucky came out of his coma and said to my husband, Billy, goes, "I'm back."
I dropped to my knees and erupted in sobs. And I kept going, "My dear son, my dear son."
It had been a miraculous sequence of events. With less than 12 hours to live, Lucky's half-brother turned out to be a perfect match, and Lucky had survived a rare and dangerous surgery. But what Dana didn't know was that something even more miraculous had yet to be revealed.
Lucky and I were talking about, what do you remember of the transplant? How are you feeling, that type of thing. And he said it was more like a dream type thing. He thought it was a dream that Big Gino had walked him back. Gino had walked him back from heaven.
I kept on hearing, "Go back, go back, go back," and it turned out to be Big Gino. I asked him to walk me back, and then I woke up, and then I told my mom the story.
At first, Dana thought it heartwarming that Lucky had dreamt about Big Gino while still in a coma. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that she realized the true phenomenon of Lucky's experience.
When they came home from the UCLA Medical Hospital, and Dana came to the store and I said, "I want to tell you that my dad passed away."
Big Gino was dead. Could it be his death had some connection to Lucky's dream?
She was crying. And she said, "Well, what happened?" And I explained to her, well, he died Thursday, the same time that Lucky went into a coma, and it just blew her mind.
The coincidence was too incredible to ignore. Dana had prayed that somebody would walk Lucky back from Heaven's Gate. Now she believed that somebody was Big Gino. In his passage to the other side, Lucky's family and friends believed Gino must have crossed paths with him and sent him back to his family.
I definitely believe 100% that Big Gino had something to do with him coming back to us.
I could see my dad making a deal with somebody to do that to save Lucky. I have no doubt that that's what happened.
I think that Lucky's been extraordinarily lucky, so I'd say his name was apt, and my hat's off to my husband, who, despite what I wanted to name him, named him Lucky.
Today, Lucky is a healthy, active kid who loves to play sports. His big brother Jason has since gone into nursing, with plans to specialize in pediatric trauma.
But that's neat to think, they always have this connection, not just of brotherly love, but they literally have a piece of each other in them,
And Big Gino, who gave Lucky such a special gift, will never be forgotten by the boy he befriended in life.
I really feel like he saved me, and I really miss him a lot. I think I'll remember him for the rest of my life.
Lucky's recovery has been incredible. He's in the 3rd grade, and he's getting very good at his new favorite sport, basketball.